Okay, so today we will cover an introduction to programming in C. So C is a general purpose. So previously we have covered that we have covered about hardware, the computer, and what the language computer understand directly is machine code. But because machine code is very hard for human to code, uh, we uh, we have some intermediate which is assembly code, and then we have a high level language programming, which is C. C is one of them. You can have Fortran, Pascal. Okay, so C is one of the earliest, one of widely used general purpose structured programming language, and we can say that its programs are highly portable, used where high performance computing and tuning is required, and can be small enough to run on small processors. So that's why in this course, in this programming, you will cover two languages. The first one is C. The second one is MATLAB. So the reason why you learn C because it requires you to learn deeper about how computer and its memory works, and also because C is you interact more closely with your machine. It allows you to do that, and probably you will need it when you are writing some control code for, let's say, you are designing some maybe robot, or but robot you requires, yeah, you will require fast processing, but maybe just some mechatronic project, control pressure, control flow. So maybe you have to write some code that have to be compiled and run on small processors, and that's where usually C will be used. So C is originally developed in the 1970s by Dennis Ritchie at Bell Telephone Laboratories. If you Google it, maybe it refers to is it Alexander Graham Bell, maybe. But you have to, maybe you can investigate if you're interested. And it's now part of AT&T, which is telecommunication giant. So in 1978, Brian Kanigan and Ritchie, the originator, published a definitive description of the language. So if you want your language to be accepted widely, you have to be very clear about the standard, how to write the code, what is the grammar of the code, what is the accepted syntax, what is the features. You have to be very consistent. So they both provide quite a very detailed specifications for how you should write C programming language. So I think it's the first standard for C programming. Okay, so now we begin with the structure of C program. So every C program consists of one or more modules called functions. One of the functions must be called main. So functions is like what we see previously in the previous slide, in the previous course, which is sub-process. So functions, something like that. Inside function, you have another instruction, more detailed instruction. So at least for C, you have one main function, which is called main. So the program will always begin by executing um, main function. So the program will always begin by executing the main function, which may access other functions. So there will be child functions inside the main function. It can be many. It can be from just main function. It will call like pages of codes. So any other function definitions may be defined separately, either ahead or after main. Also, again, on the structure of the C function, a function heading which consists of the function name followed by an optional list of arguments, variables, parameters, and enclosed in parentheses. So function must have the name and also the input to the function. So before you call a subprocess, you need to give some values for the function to operate. And a list of argument declarations if arguments are not included in the heading. Also a compound of statements. So can be inside the function. You can have statements or instructions which relates to input output and maybe some computing. Okay, this is example of a very basic C program. So the program is to calculate the area of a circle. So you can find this is the main function, main, and you have parentheses. So every function have parentheses. But for main, usually you can have argument inside, but usually you can leave it empty because it's the main function. So here you have a compound statement inside the main. So the function must be enclosed by, the argument must be given inside the parentheses, and the statement must be given in curly braces, curly braces at the front and at the end. So the parentheses, we have some rules. So in the next lecture, we will cover more details about the rules, where you can place the curly braces, whether you can have multi-line statements. So this will be, but today we just introduce you to C programming and up to running a code. I hope you're ready with your code blocks. We are going after after I describe some basics of C programming. We will try to compile and run some program. Okay. So after that we have we can digest. We can classify all of the statements, all of the line to be as follows. So the first line is comments. So the comments will not be executed by computer. It is only for human. So let's say, for example, here is just a description what this program are going to do. So comments is one way to write comments in your code is to put your comment inside the slash and star. This is begin, and this is to end your comment. And then you can have statement access standard library file. So include standard input output. So for standard C installation compiler, usually they have already a library of functions that you can call, like for input, for reading input, for reading output. So actually, it will have more details of computer instructions, but you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to write again very basic things, but C provides some standard library functions. And then we move to the function heading and name. So function have name. And then the next statement is the variable that you are going to use, like radius. Radius you are using inside the subsequent statements. So you have first declare the variable, the data type. So here radius is defined as float. Float means that radius and area is a floating number. So if I may write, so floating number is like the number lah, 1.1, 2, 2, 3, or it can be 0.5, floating number. You can also have integer like 1, 2, 3. So first you have to declare the data type, because for different data type, let's say integer, float, or maybe alphabet character, if computer know the type, the computer will know how to deal with the memory, how the memory arranged, like 10101. Okay, how do I treat this chunk of memory? Okay, if the user declare that it is float, okay, then the computer know how to deal with it. Okay, so declaration is compulsory, variable declaration in C. But for some other languages, maybe they guess what you are trying to declare your variable. But for C, definitely you need to declare your variable, and it is important to be precise about it. And here we have printf statement, which is if you write as if you draw your flowchart, you can have something like, so here first you in the function main printf input so your program begins, start, and then here input radius. First output ask radius. So this is print to screen, and then so the user will see the question and the output. But after seeing the request made by the program, what is the output? We have another function which is scanf. So the scanf have two. We give two argument here, which is the format of the string that will be read and the variables that we will give into. So in terms of flowchart, it is read radius. Okay, next we compute. After we read radius, we calculate the area. So we have formula here, pi times radius to the square. So because if you want to use some function that calculate square, maybe you have to include another standard library which is math. But because you don't include it, we will left with maybe basic arithmetic operation. So assignment statement. Output, input, and assignment. So you have some process here, some computing done, calculation. So area equal pi r squared. And then after you get the result, you are going to display the result. If you don't put this, the computer will show you nothing. So you have to be explicit about asking the computer to display the result. So printf again, print to the screen. So the argument is the text area equal to. So this hint for some area will be the value of area will be written inside this some formatting. Formatting we will write as float. Okay, so output statement. So just the same like you have covered previously, writing as a flow chart if you need to visualize the argument. Print area, then end. Okay. So basically, the flowchart to represent the code is like this. But once you start programming, now you are going to be precise about the coding language, the grammar. So the grammar means something like, okay, if this is a function, then you need to put in parentheses. But if you want to specify string that the computer have to write or read, string format, not numbers, you have to put double quote at the beginning and the end of line. So this we call a syntax or number. If you put it wrong, then the program cannot be compiled. Another one example of syntax is this end statement, semicolon. So after you finish your statement, you must end with semicolon. So the collection of these statements of instruction or instruction is called compound statement. So another thing is main function is mandatory. So every program will start running inside main function. And from there you can call many other functions. So any question at this point? Maybe you have question when we compile and run this program. So from the structure, the program should be able to interact with the user. So like we have seen previously, the most basic thing is to display information to the user. The most basic and common way of producing information to user in C is by using the function printf. So you have to remember printf. You to display on the screen, on the console, on the command line interface, you use printf command. For example, printf, my name is Ahmad. So when computer run this statement, it will display on your screen. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so previously we one basic operation is display information to the user, so that user know how to interact with the program. And second is requesting information from the user. So the most basic and common way of requesting information from user in C is by using the function scanf. So this is a very basic description. You can see the manual, but maybe long. But here you just see this very concise explanation. So example, request from user to key in an integer number. So scanf. So in the string, and that will be allocated in the value that you read in the screen, it will be converted into D. D formatting stands for integer. So the integer will assign the value inside this variable value. So in order to access the memory of the value, you have to put the and sign. Okay. So I just so in general, program execution takes two steps. So first, uh, the compilation of the source code. So compilation is the process of converting the source code into machine language. So the very minimalist language that is spoken directly by the machine in use. So the machine language is stored in a new file. So compilation, you write your program in human readable language, C, which is C. But in order to for the computer to be able to run it, you need to compile the code into machine code. I have shown you previously, which is a series of binary numbers. So after you compile, you can only then run or execute the machine language file. Hmm. Sorry, I saved in the wrong format, so it gets. Okay, so the preprocessor, so in the process of compiling your source code, the preprocessor will take your source code and following certain directive that you give in, tweaks in the various way before compilation. So it will produce some directive. So, but the directive is somewhat you can still read it, but it is no longer in the C language, but it is understandable by the compiler. Okay, so usually when you compile your code, let's say using GCC, you will convert into something that compiler can understand before the compiler convert it into an object code. So advantage is Yeah. If you have a separate compilation, let's say in your program you write, you can write your program. Sorry, we begin. You can write your program inside a very large single file. It can take like 50 pages of code, and you write in a single file only. But the problem is when you make change to the code and you recompile, let's say you find some bugs or error on a single line. If you recompile, the compiler need to recompile everything in the file. But if a better code management is to write in several files, in different files. Say the main file in one document, and the internal functions is written in another document. So if you make edits in small change in some of the file, the compiler only recompile the document that you have changed, eh? the file that you have changed, the modified. So your compilation will be faster. So for very large programs, this can save a lot of time. Okay. And also a program compilation in the process. If you have a C program consists of source code in one or more files. So each source file is run through the preprocessor and compiler, resulting in a file containing object code. So let's say your source code you have like two files, file 1C and file 2C. So when you compile them, the preprocessor and compiler will compile them into an object code first for file 1. So file 1.o and also file 2.o. And then the compiler will run the linker, which will link these two files together, including the libraries that you called previously. Sorry. Okay. So the libraries is something like the one that you include in your program, like this one. The library here you include standard input output the library. So it will be actually linked in during compile time. Compile and then link them together. So the standard library usually have already the binaries that you can connect to your code. So it is done before you have, and before the compiler generate your executable code. So your machine code usually can be written as a.exe. Okay, I think we are going to start coding. So all of you can, I suppose many of you can install from the instruction, from the giving instruction. I suppose that most of you already installed correctly, right? So how many of you have problems with the installation? May I know? Can you raise your hand? Two. Mak Darwish. Nanti boleh teks lah lepas ni rasanya. Kalau ada masalah, tanya kawan-kawan lain. So tadi ada 2 orang lain yang tak boleh install Yang lain semua okey, semua boleh install. Lepas tu ada satu part last tu test run. You have to test your installation with simple hello world code. So I assume all of you can run the simple code correctly, right? Okay. Okay, now we are going to see. I'm opening my sample code. Bear with me for a moment. Okay, so one way to compile, write and compile your C program, you can use code block, and from code block it provide you some utilities to um, sorry to create to manage C program. So let's say I put it my first program, 001 area of circle. So you give your project title, and it will assume what is your project location is. So for mine, C programming, and another one is C programming. I have to change it. C programming. Okay. So the project file name will be automatically written as 00 area of circle. So I just put numbers here so that you can see for different examples. You have numbers which indicate increasing complexity. Okay. Then we proceed. You choose your compiler. So here we are going to use GNU GCC compiler, and make sure that you enable create debug configurations and also release configuration. So it will give you basic hello world program that you can test. So I repeat, for today's class, and maybe some of you are confused about what is the fundamentals, what is the rule of writing, and why we put parentheses here. This is covered in the next lecture, which will cover C fundamentals, every rule. But for now, maybe just for you to see how C program is written and can be run. So I will tell you in maybe briefly what some functions do, but you are going to see more details in your next lecture. Fundamentals, the rule, the syntax, how you can write numbers correctly, what is acceptable, what is not. Okay. So let's say this is your example code. You first build it. You can press Control F9. Hit here, or maybe this button. Build. Okay. So if you see build log down here, you receive some message. So actually, this is a command run in the background. The code block make it easy for you. The code block run for you these commands. Okay. So process terminated. The compiling process terminated with status 0. So meaning no problem. In programming, status 0 mean no problem. But if you have some other code like 1, 10, 19, to indicate some kind of error. Okay. So my code can compile correctly. And now we try to run the code. Debug. Maybe build and run your code, your machine program. But first you have to see this one. I have to show you. Code is located in C, area of circle, 001 area of circle. And in this folder, it's actually my code. You can open it using Notepad, text editor. But CodeBlocks is an IDE that provides that functionality. Put some coloring on text. Okay. So after you build your code, you can see that you have main.o object files, and after from that you will generate your binary code. Okay, to run this, you should have some proper command actually. But in Linux, you can directly run the machine code, but maybe in Windows, code blocks will get some additional layer to run this console code. So you have to run, as I understand, in Windows, you have to run using code blocks. And let's see. So your program compiled correctly and can run correctly. So you can see that after the program enter main function, you ask the program to print hello world to the screen. So it do what you tell it. Okay. So you can add another line. Good morning. Okay. And then if you directly run your code, it still produce hello world, because the important step is to first build. This is still you have saved the file, but it is still in the form of source code. So you have to build it first, the changes, and then only then you run it. So you have a hello world, good morning. Okay. So until now, do you have a question before we move to some?
So how did you do it again? The good morning one?
Good morning.
Yeah.
The typing, you mean?
Yes, yes. I mean,
I think.
because just now when I when I copy paste the good morning word, it still runs. It shows hello world.
Oh yeah. Okay. Maybe you do your screen lagging? Do you my video lagging on your computer?
Oh no no.
So
I missed that part. I missed that part just now.
okay. First, you have to build. Um, Before you run, you have to build, and you can click it, and then you only then you run. Can you try? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. It's okay now.
Okay. Okay. So when you build, so it will replace. We will replace your machine code, your binary. So it is for this time I still not correct yet. So just past minute, 344, 343. And if I build it again, so it will overwrite. Oh no, it does nothing because I did not produce any change in the code. So I first need to change the code before recompilation happen. So good thing that it first analyze whether the file have changes or not. If change, compared to last time, it will recompile. If not, it will just say, okay, we do nothing, build, and run. Right? Sorry. So I missed. This is some kind of syntax error. You forget to follow some grammar. You need to put semicolon at the end of statement. So even for very simple code, you do mistakes. So debugging, you will definitely need debugging. Okay, now we move to our previous example. Sorry. Okay, then because the program is area of circle. First we write command up there. I will write from scratch. So first we put some comment. So maybe most of the time at top of the line you put the description. Program to calculate the area of circle. Is the text on the editor large enough for you? Maybe some of you don't have a clear video. So can you read this text for slow connections?
Yes, sir. Can read.
Okay, maybe I just make it a little larger. Okay. And first, because we are going to use some input-output function that we are not going to rewrite, it is very complex. So we just include standard library provided by C package when you install it. So you input a standard. So there are many kind of standard library that you can use. So main. So you should see this is in the page in the textbook. SCOM's outline too. You can see page 9. This is located in page 9. Comment page 9. You see it? And you declare, you define your function main. Okay, and then we declare some variables as floating number, radius, area. Okay, and then we ask the user who runs this program using this command print to screen with some formatting. So the string to us, the first argument is the string that you give that have to be written. Radius equal to what? Okay, and don't forget semicolon to end the statement. Next, scanf. So this is to read input from user from keyboard, and you are going to read the values given by user as a floating number. This is formatting syntax. You will see the details later. I assume this is just when you have a string, and this symbol, it means formatting. So any value given by the user will be written inside the radius. So this variable that you have declared previously. Okay. End of statement. So will you have some value? You can calculate the area. Now you start computing. Area is equal to 3.142 pi times radius. Okay. Then printf. Maybe you have to store this example. Maybe the next example will be some kind of enhancement. So you are going to change this script. Then after you get the result area, you are going to back to print the area. So the string that have to be put on screen is area equal to some floating number. Some floating number. This is formatting. So what is the floating number? Which variable that are you going to use? So you are going to put in variable area inside this formatting. So we replace this this text with the value of area as a floating number. Okay. All right. Now you can. So good thing now you have a good IDE code block, so it doesn't show you any error right now. So you can safely build a program. Build finish, 0 errors, 0 warning. Ada warning. Nothing warning there. So actually, I think the example code is not good. So maybe some declaration. You have to declare main. It's okay. But most of the time, maybe you can just leave it. Just warning. If warning, you can still compile and run. But error, you cannot compile and run. Okay. So I recompile it. 0 errors. Okay, this can be run, and then you run the code. So in build, run. So the program asks you radius. I say I put 2 or 1, 1. So this is 1, and then it will give you the area. It will print area equal to. You calculate the area, and then it will give the area to you. Okay, print out to the screen. And okay, we can see some maybe not nice to look because it looks like this. So maybe after your question, you can put some escape character, which is new line. So this stands for new line in C programming language. So if you recompile and run, so now your input will be in the new line. You can put like 2. So the program will give you the area. So at this point, do you have any question? Everything is clear for you? Any part that you missed?
Sir,
Yes.
when I try to run the program, I only see radius. May I show my screen?
Okay, you can do that.
Oh, wait.
Okay, I have to accept that. Okay, you can show your screen now.
Can you see, sir?
Your screen still not appear. Can you request to present again? There's button down there. Present now. Okay.
You can see now.
It does. I cannot make it full screen. Okay, now it's okay. All right. So try to run this, compile and rerun.
Wait.
You have to select the file first.
Which one, sir?
Yeah. Okay. But try to click. Okay. Now first compile, recompile.
Compile. Wait.
If you compile, can I see the message? The bit log. Can you recompile again? No, click build, not in the build. You click build. The top one.
Line number 13. There is a mistake.
Okay, nothing to be done. Lagi it's up to date. Click run. Nothing appears,
Yeah.
There is a mistake, sir, in line number 13.
This one?
Line 13, okay. All right, actually you have to area outside the string.
Oh.
You just put area, right?
Yep.
Area is outside the screen. The string, yes.
This one?
Yes.
Put it here?
Inside the parentheses.
Oh, inside the parentheses.
Okay, so I think you get the correct answer, right?
Yes.
Okay, I will show you another trick. to understand how your code working, line by line. So maybe first you okay, I still don't share my screen. Sorry. So you can use debug because you compile your code as debugging mode. So first you put in debugging breakline. So you click debug and then start. Okay. So you have another Windows appears here. It's called watch. You can put inside. You can put on here, or maybe variables. So view. So right now you are at this line. You can proceed line by line. Next line. So now the program is at this point. So you already define radius and area. So because you still don't initialize, it will just give you some values of radius, random values. And then after you scan from your keyboard, so I proceed for the next line. Okay, the console does not appear. Yeah, so it's okay, this one. So let's say I put 5. So after scan F, the program will read 5 and put inside the radius as a floating number. So you can see 5 here. Then you proceed next line. We calculate the area. Right? So something like that. Maybe if you have a complex program, you